All right, today we're going to dig into the story behind a single book, but this is really about something much bigger. It's a look at how truly great things get made, and spoiler alert, it's not by just one person. It takes a whole community.
So, let me ask you this. How in the world do you write the book on a technology that's still basically being invented as you go? I mean, think about Bitcoin. It's decentralized, it's changing all the time, and it's incredibly complex. Where do you even start? It's kind of like trying to paint a portrait of someone while they're running a marathon. That's the huge challenge we're talking about here.
And the book we're talking about is Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas M. Antonopoulos. If you've been in the crypto space for any amount of time, you've heard of it. For years, this has been the absolute Bible for any developer who really wants to get their hands dirty and understand how Bitcoin works under the hood. It is the go-to guide.
This quote from Andreas himself just perfectly nails the problem. He kept getting stuck because, you see, Bitcoin isn't something you can explain from A to B to C. Everything is tangled together. Transactions, mining, cryptography, it's all one big knot. You can't explain one part without explaining everything else at the same time. For a writer, that is a total nightmare.
So, what do? How do you solve that puzzle? Well, the breakthrough, that real aha moment, was realizing he wasn't writing it alone. The secret was to just lean into it, to accept that this book couldn't be his alone. It had to be a product of the entire Bitcoin world.
And that was the core idea, right there. You just can't separate the Bitcoin technology from the Bitcoin community. They're two sides of the same coin. The tech is built, argued over, and made better by this massive global community. So to write the book on Bitcoin, he had to write it with the people of Bitcoin. It wasn't just his project anymore. It belonged to everyone. And man, did the community show up. The ideas for this book weren't cooked up in some quiet office. No way. They were forged in the fire of public debate. You had inspiration and feedback flying in from everywhere, from meetups and conferences, from crazy debates on Twitter and Reddit, deep dives on forums like Bitcoin Talk, and, this is key, on GitHub. Get a load of this. When the first drafts hit GitHub, the response was immediate. Over 100 comments, corrections, and suggestions came pouring in from the public. Just think about that for a second. More than 100 people from all over the world just giving their time for free to make this book better. That's open source authorship in action. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, but let's take a step back for a second. You don't just wake up one day and write a book this good. The author's own story is a huge part of this, and it really drives home that same theme, the power of learning from other people.
Turns out, the lead author himself is a product of his own community of mentors. His journey started in a remedial English class with a teacher who gave him the confidence to write. Then he sharpened his skills as a columnist for Network World, with editors showing him the ropes. And even when he was deep in the weeds writing this very book and hit a wall, his mentor was there to help him see the path forward. At every single stage, someone was there to guide him.
Now, community feedback is great, right? But for a technical book like this, one thing is absolutely non-negotiable: accuracy. You get one little thing wrong, and you could send thousands of developers down the completely wrong path. So this book needed another layer of community defense, a whole army of expert reviewers.
And this review process was intense. You had the professional editors from the publisher doing their thing. You had volunteer editors on GitHub sorting through all that public feedback. But here's the kicker. You also had the Bitcoin core developers, the actual people building this stuff, and top experts on brand new tech like the Lightning Network, all kicking the tires to make sure every single detail was spot on.
This was absolutely critical for tackling the newest, most complicated parts of Bitcoin. I mean, how do you explain something like segregated witness or the Lightning Network? You go straight to the people who invented it. Andreas worked directly with the developers, and they didn't just proofread. They jumped in and helped break down these super dense topics so the rest of us could actually understand them.
But the story doesn't stop with the first edition. Of course not. The technology keeps evolving, so the book had to evolve too. And that same collaborative spirit, it carried right on through. So when it came time for the third edition, there was a big change. Andreas passed the torch, handing over the lead author role to David A. Harding, another super respected name in the community. It was a move suggested by developer Jimmy Song. This was all about making sure the book stayed a living, breathing document, always kept up to date by the sharpest minds in the space.
And you know the very first thing the new author does? He keeps that cycle of gratitude going.
David Harding immediately gives a shout out to his own mentors and reviewers, people like Gregory Maxwell and Andrew Pulelstra, and he gives a special thanks to Mark Murch Erhardt for what he called an incredibly in-depth and insightful review. The tradition of giving credit where it's due just continues.
So when you step back and look at this whole story, what's the big takeaway? What's the fundamental lesson here from the way mastering Bitcoin came to be?
It's really this simple. In a decentralized world, you don't build foundational things alone. Whether you're building the software itself or the book that explains the software, it is a fundamentally collaborative act. This book isn't just a book. It's more like a monument, built by hundreds of people, each one laying a brick, a piece of knowledge, a small correction, a new idea.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. If a book is born from meetups and forum posts and GitHub comments and expert reviews and years of mentorship, who's the real author here? Is it the name you see on the cover, or is it the community itself? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.